Let's kick it off with an ad.
To call for hands above, to lean on, would it be good enough for me now? To call for hands above, to lean on, would it be good enough?
Do you guys remember this? You can tell it's been a while if you look at the television. All right, let's watch one more.
Dear stranger, when I booked this trip, my friend said I was crazy. Why would I stay in someone else's house? But this morning, a city I've never been to felt like one I already knew. Everyone in your neighborhood was so warm and friendly. And your home was perfect. And peaceful. Oh, and then I met your friends. They reminded me of my friends. It felt like I had known them for years. It was almost like family. I just wanted to thank you for sharing your world with me. It felt like home. Airbnb, belong anywhere.
Okay, so let's compare these two ads. While Sony, they did a beautiful job creating a nice-looking ad that won them several awards. What they were communicating was a functional benefit, more colors on your TV. And this campaign actually didn't work. It didn't increase the sales of televisions. It was essentially saying the same thing as the competition was saying. Our technology looks the best. Now, Airbnb communicates around emotional and social needs of the target group. Now, maybe it's unfair to compare these, but I want to use them as metaphors of where VOD as an industry is today and where we could be. Now, I'm not here to talk about ads, but these ads are examples of symptoms of brand maturity, and that's what I want to talk about. So, to give some context, I should present Viaplay. We are a Nordic SVOD streaming service based in Sweden, and we've been around since 2011. We're a clear market second behind Netflix among SVOD services, but our service also provides live sports, where we are number one, and TV channels. We pioneered the offline feature way back in 2012, and today we're available on a lot of platforms, and we stream a lot of live events in high quality. We're part of Modern Times Group, a Nordic broadcasting company in the middle of digital transformation, becoming what we call a digital entertainer, where we not only have TV channels and VOD services, but also other things like esports initiatives and so on. The Viaplay content portfolio is increasingly focusing on own productions, spanning across different genres, and 2 of our originals have been sold internationally to Hulu and Pop TV. But we also have strong acquired content and the top sports lineup. So, what could be the next level? Let's start by exploring the state of the digital product industry right now and where it's heading in terms of maturity. It's always tricky to predict the future based on current trends, as you can see. But it might be easier to start by understanding the present. To say that we are in the age of consumer is a big understatement. As consumers, we are now used to being in control, and industries that don't allow for this control are having a hard time keeping up and are vulnerable to disruption. We've seen this again and again. Personal fulfillment is a big focus for the individual, and experiences tend to get more and more all in. The pain of choice is real. And in an uncertain world of products and content rights, the consumer of video entertainment is having a pretty hard time in the midst of all the freedom. And the fight to own things like content discovery, curation, and the default position on the TV, as we heard about earlier today, that isn't helping. Modern branding is about doing, not just talking. a superior customer experience becomes the competitive edge. And to provide a great experience, you need to understand your audience. Need to listen, you will. I didn't know if I should say that in a Yoda voice. Probably good I didn't. Okay. To show my point, I like to look at some examples of digital products that have matured and to see what we might learn. First example is Spotify. Of course, I'm from Sweden. I'm, of course, thrilled about this success story. But if you recall, for a long time, this product was not a very good one. Of course, it worked really well because they had been a very tech-focused company, building features at a high pace and with a robust streaming delivery from day one. But the experience was pretty random. A few years ago, they made a big effort to bring it all together, and they created something called Glue, a system of principles and a design language that created consistency across platforms and features. Glue would help them not only align the visual design, but also value features and how they connected to their overall mission. Now, in that mission, they've also found something of a unique stance in the world of music services. They started to develop features that were aligned and made sense. They all made the service feel more human. I think they're only just scratching the surface of this power of this hybrid between data and curation. And from a brand competition perspective, I think it's very interesting because it positions them clearly someplace different than Apple Music and others. And it also shows a certain level of maturity for a tech product company. Next up is the company from that ad. Airbnb is really interesting, I think, because they matured pretty early and created a connection between a company vision and a way of working that clearly reflects in the user experience. Back in 2014, they made a big rebranding effort. They went from being this very generic marketplace for renting other people's apartments, telling people to find a place to stay, into connecting their brand and tone to their core mission. And this is sort of their vision statement, helping people belong anywhere. As you can see, they used it in their ad as well. And they, in a very clever way, they launched a new visual identity, including this new logo that was just packed with meaning. The rebranding effort in itself was very impressive. In just a few months, they launched a new identity, including a new consistent UI across their services. But I think more interestingly, they seem to have unleashed something huge, since their approach as a service started to shift in a big way. The UI, the features, the customer experience, the host platform, everything suddenly seemed to be tightly connected and in a very coherent and explicit way. You started to feel their underlying mission in every touch point. And having studied this company quite a bit, I know that this is something that influences their internal culture as well. How they, how they set up their processes, how they think about leadership, roadmap focus, etc. And I think this is a crucial thing. They've managed to get this to breathe in everything they do. Alex Schleifer, the VP of Design at Airbnb, recently said in a podcast that their mission and values come up on a weekly basis on work meetings across the company and guides everyday decision making, which is really cool. Competition is trying to catch up, but it's still very generic visual design, and the proposition is very functional, sort of like the old Airbnb website. And meanwhile, Airbnb are leveraging on their insights with their mission and finding new features that map to specific groups and needs, like the co-host. People interested in renting out their homes but feel it's too much work can now get help from super hosts who just can't get enough. Now this is really powerful. A third example I want to bring up is Lyft, the ride-sharing service. Just like Uber, they're in the US currently only. But being a head-to-head competitor with Uber made them look at what could be their competitive edge. And what they did was to identify the driver as the key component. So they focused on the driver experience, making it as humane as possible, making them the heroes of the service. Of course, this includes working very actively on how drivers treat their relationship with their customers. I've made a habit of comparing these two services when I'm in the US, and there is a huge difference in how you're treated as a customer. although the service is basically similar. There's small differences like the ability to tip the driver, but also what Lyft focuses on and their brand communication. And looking at the state of Uber and their company culture right now, the impact of this approach becomes even more apparent. So, what does this mean for us streamers? To get to this question, I'd like to share the journey of Viaplay and how we are thinking about these things. Now, a big disclaimer, we have not cracked this. We're only in the beginning, but we found something that we believe in, and I hope it's interesting to listen to. So, at Viaplay, we had an increasing feeling of being stuck in the middle. On one hand, we were moving fast and getting traction for our technical platform and becoming stable and scalable. And our UX approach was creating a service that was actually easy to use, and we were becoming more aligned in our processes as we grew. We were becoming a more clearly defined competitor on the market. But on the other hand, we have Netflix and to some extent HBO as our local competitors that we felt an increasing need to tackle with a sensible strategy. We could also see in our market research that while our customers gave us praise, the non-customers had a very vague perception of our brand, despite us doing quite a bit of marketing. And this seemed like a big opportunity, since a lot of products have it the other way around, disappointing people as they become customers. Also, in terms of roadmap, we started to feel more and more the need to define what the bigger goal was. And I think this is pretty common for a lot of industries, especially tech-intensive ones like streaming. We had such a long to-do list of just building and scaling a service that works that we had kept ourselves busy with the basics. And also from a consumer perspective, the basic offering of entertainment on demand was good enough to build a business. But this is starting to change. And if we look at some other industries, it's pretty clear that the life cycle of the industry follow a similar pattern. Looking at e-commerce, for example, an industry that was fast-moving in the digital space. And not that long ago, it was a race for features, focusing on things like a flexible platform, SEO, or search engine optimization, etc. And after a while, it shifted towards availability, such as shipping time and return policy, and also optimizing the user journey with things like follow-up scenarios and building loyalty by retention communication plans. And today, if we look at some of the best-in-class examples like Zappo, etc., there are lots of features that cater for real pain points and real needs, like the Fit Survey, a very visual and easy-to-use guide for actual size, or highlighted reviews, both positive and critical. Fashion retailers are experimenting with presentation and connecting to the Instagram era in their communication approach, humanizing the brand. So back to our world. In order to cater for emotional and social needs, you need to understand your audience. User research is a crucial factor, and we decided to leverage on our insights. And asking people about what needs are important for a streaming service to cater for, we started to see a pattern. A mind share of a brand is divided up into 3 categories of needs. First, you have the functional, things like high streaming quality, easy to use, good movies, good and easy search functions. And then you have the emotional benefits, things like relax and getting into a good mood, get a moment for myself, experience the best movies, the best content. And then you have the social dimension, wanting to escape, want variation, enjoy life, seek new experiences. And looking at the streaming industry as a whole, we could see a big skew towards the functional dimension, which makes sense in a young industry. But there is a shift towards emotional and social dimensions, which hints at a maturing market or one that's ready for more in the eyes of the public. The functional needs are becoming hygiene factors. The consumer will still want to see the functional needs fulfilled, of course, but in an emotionally compelling way. So we did a lot of research on brand perception, and tied it to the general needs of entertainment consumers. And based on the 8 fundamental motivations for consumer behavior and tailored for the category of video entertainment. We clustered the basic needs into this map. Now, of course, as a service, you should probably try to cater for all of the needs connected to it. And in the design team, we'd been working with these as personas for a while when designing solutions. But as a company, we never really made a decision about which ones are more important. And from a brand perspective, it makes sense to target one where you can be better than others. And looking at how consumers valued brands in the market at the time, it became very clear that the market itself is immature, since they all end up in the middle, including us. The only ones that really stood out, and not that much either, were Netflix and HBO Nordic. Which makes sense, since Netflix has become the whole household name in streaming, and the market lead is always going to enjoy a boost effects and brand perception. And HBO, with its strong original content spearheaded by Game of Thrones, also stands out. But what this means in general is that people don't really care about these streaming brands on more than a functional level. So, we made a choice based on what we could materialize, what we believed in, what aligned with our company values and goals, and we defined a framework of what this position could be. So we wanted to go from being just a provider of content into being a creator of moments that matter. Now it breaks down into this very simple formula. I want to relax and get a break from all the musts. Viaplay helps me find the right content, regardless if I'm looking for a thrill, a laugh, or a cry. I get absorbed into the content. I let go and go all in. I experience a moment of unconditional relaxation, a moment that matters. Now, choosing a brand position doesn't mean that you ignore all other needs, as I was saying. It just means that you focus your communication and to some extent the focus of the product on one dimension and try to be better than everyone else in that field. But of course, you still have to deliver on the core, the hygiene factors. A lot about this is about structuring your value approach as you grow and scale. So we created this framework based on the purpose statement. This spans over the entire company, enabling tons of clarity across departments aligned on the shared purpose. For example, the overarching brand principles. They talk about how we approach our world, how we approach our content and our customers. And these in turn create principles on many different levels. For example, product principles. They talk about our values in product development, how we work and what's important, something to guide our decision making in the product. The framework also covers how we communicate consistently and why. Now, how we communicate is key, and to connect to our purpose, we've defined our tone to be charismatic, contemporary, and courageous. This goes for marketing as well as product experience, customer service, and also our internal communication. Of course, tailored for the occasion, but always mindful of the brand. Same goes for imagery. Now this is sort of classic brand book stuff, but it gets easily overlooked when you're a content provider. And this is an important part of the consistency in the experience. So, what does it mean for the product experience? Let's look at some explorations on what it means for us. We've established a general tone, big imagery, for example, promoting content with focus on emotion. Our approach to potential customers should be all about moments, teasing and peeking into what moments are around the corner. Curating for moods. Mixing the algorithms with carefully selected collections. Tone is key. Understanding and relating to your audience. And being a very clear sender, providing the human touch needed to create value in curation. We're trying a lot of approaches here, and we're still experimenting. Now, this is hard to assess and measure, like how inspired do you get? But we're convinced catering to different moods, it's not about providing sliders of how much fun or scary you want to watch, but it's about communicating in a way that responds, that resonates to different moods, and to combine it with data to increase accuracy. We're experimenting with things like layout, copy, tone, and selection. We're currently running multiple A/B tests in the service, trying to find the sweet spot of curation, which is a tricky business since we measure both actual conversion to play and emotional impact, which is more long-term. Another thing we're doing is tailored communication based on behavior. We call this in-product communication, a powerful tool for our ambition to be the guide who understands your personal experience. Surfacing relevant content on parameters like time of day. For example, NHL games showing up late at night, or kids series on early weekend mornings. All about trying to uncover moments. So, apart from the product experience, another part this affects is, of course, the content strategy. As we continue to expand into own productions, the characteristics of them become more aligned to what we want to achieve. To have a Nordic, local touch combined with a high-quality blockbuster approach. Purpose creates clarity in terms of goals and ambitions, and which tie in nicely to user insights. This idea from a design sprint we did around the navigation and the mobile apps is called the Moment Maker, referencing our purpose and overall goal. Now this brings me to an extremely important aspect, the internal culture. Creating clarity and unite around the purpose, it's not easy, but it's crucial. The frameworks will help, but they need to be guided, evaluated, and reminded constantly. A small detail is to rebrand meeting room names. Others are monthly champions for creating moments. Brand ambassadors across all departments. Manager follow-up on how principles are used in everyday decision-making. All hands meetings structured around the core principles, etc. Another example is our hack days. It's a recurring theme where everybody in the company can explore projects at their own will, something we've been doing for a long time. But since we added this layer of purpose and the framework, these tend to be a lot more focused on our mission, creating greater value and engagement. So, has this approach had any impact? Are we on the right path? It's still very early, as I said, but we're continuously monitoring so-called UX metrics, and we can see that the general perception is that we are doing a better job at helping people getting inspired and finding things to watch. We're also seeing a great development in terms of NPS and churn levels. And churn is supposed to be low, remember? So we feel that we are on the right path, even though I'm convinced we're just taking our first baby steps. Now, I hope you find this inspirational, but don't copy this solution. You need to figure out your place in the world. It may seem like we all have the same position and should embark on the same route, but that's a mistake made on an immature market. In order to compete, you need to find your uniqueness, like we hopefully have. Now I want to conclude by showing you this internal clip that summarizes what we want to become and that we've used to rally the crew when we launched this concept.
The forward is approaching his goal, and the antagonist is closing in on our hero.
Paradise 2016.
The mayflies of this year's reality show are sensationally provoking. And the drama in this drama, it's just too dramatic. We love it when there's absolutely no stop to the thrill, the anticipation, the excitement. When we can just relax, let go, and get absorbed into that other world. So, let go and follow your gut feeling. Go all in. For sports, for drama, for comedies, or action? You decide. We provide. Because we are hooked on captivating experiences. And we want to let you go all into the moment. Because at the end of the day, when we close our eyes and feel the result of the day deep in our soul, it's only moments that matter. Our purpose, to create moments that matter.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Now we are overrunning slightly, so I think we'll just take a couple of questions, if that's all right, Christoffer?
Sure.
Yeah?
Sorry, Aubrey from FreeSat. You're now available in some territories outside of the Nordic region. How key is localization in those new markets, and how are you implementing that?
We're actually focusing on the Nordic market only, so I'm not sure what you're referring to, but within the Nordic markets, of course, it's still important with localization. The Nordics are, similar, but still, Finland is very different from Denmark, for example. So yeah, it's super crucial, and it's always something that, especially with an effort like this, it becomes even more clear. Like if you want to have a human touch and really have a relationship with your audience, you need to be relevant in that context. So it's yeah.
Hi, just a quick question around sport within a VOD product. Viaplay is very interesting in the fact that with the MTG rights package, you've got sports there. How does that work with the broader online viewing piece? Because that's a big differentiator from the SVOD products, which are available within the Nordics, right?
Yeah. So your question is, how do we handle the sports in this perspective, or? Yeah, that's a very good question, because obviously the sports audience is very different from the rest, and also the sports rights being becomes this premium product that the other SVOD service is not to the same extent. So it was something that we thought a lot about when we sort of chose our position. It was very important for us that sports would actually fit into that definition and encompass everything that we wanted to. And we think that we have found something that does encompass sports as well. It's a lot about those moments are in sports as well. And we have this sort of high quality content aspect of these moments that really are catered for in the sports world as well. But it's something that to be very mindful of. It's the same with sort of kids, so it's a completely different scenario as well.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.